In English, we've been talking about fractions, and today we're going to look at the way fractions can help us understand parts of a set, right? It's another way to use fractions. We've talked before about how fractions are something that show up in our daily life quite a bit. Well, this is another way when we're doing parts of a set. Now, I tried. It's hard because in your worksheet, this is math worksheet 257, 258. On the worksheet, there's a lot of color. It's hard for me to get colors to show up on my board and then in the video. So we're just going to have to use our imagination. But we're looking at lots of different pictures of sets that we're going to divide into equal parts, or we're going to look at what the parts are represented in the pictures. Okay, let's look at number one together. We'll do several problems together just to kind of practice what this is that they're asking you to do, okay? This is a set of 4 flowers, all right? The set of 4 flowers. Now in your book, there are 3 red flowers and 1 yellow flower. If you were going to name those parts of a set with a fraction, how many flowers are red? Oh, I did it right. Red. 1, 2, 3 of the 4 flowers are red. 3/4 is red. Now, how many of the 4 flowers are yellow? 1. 1 of the 4. 1/4 is yellow. All right, so it's another way. Before, our fractions have all been a part of shapes. These are parts of a set. We can still use fraction names for parts of a set. All right, next day look for, there's a set of windmills. There's a set that is coins. There is a set of baskets, okay? So there are different ways that they're asking you to say, of this set, how many are a certain color, how many are pennies, how many are dimes. So you're going to be able to fill in the fraction names, okay? Then they ask you to do something called circle the equal share. This is another way that you'll probably, even without thinking about it, be using fractions in your daily life. Almost anytime you're trying to share something equally, you're looking at a set amount and then you're thinking, how do I partition this, or how do I make this into equal shares for each person? Okay, for example, number 5 says that there are 4 students who are sharing 8 pencils. Circle the equal share. How can 4 students equally share 8 pencils? And we're going to circle it. How many will each student get if they are going to be equal? Okay, so there are 4, so it needs to be 4 groups. We give each student 2 pencils. That is dividing your set into 4 equal groups. So each student gets how many pencils? 2. All right? That's another way that we are thinking with fractions and using it. You'll notice the longer you learn math, not only is it a language, you learn all these new words and ways to describe things, math also all sticks together. Think Legos. You know how there's blocks that you can just stack on each other, but Legos click together and they can grow and build something stronger. Math is like that. Each section of math clicks together with another section and it all works together. So some of this that you're doing with fractions can someday help you with division. It's a lot of the same ideas, right? So this is circling an equal share. Number 6 asks you to imagine friends sharing a funnel cake, okay? So there are, let's see, how many funnel cakes are there? There are 3 funnel cakes, but only 2 friends are going to share it. Oh, it's not 3 funnel cakes, it's pieces of funnel cakes. So 6 pieces of funnel cake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the plate. 6 little pieces on the plate, okay? So if you have 6 pieces of funnel cake and 2 friends, how could you divide this? Each friend gets 1, 2, 3 pieces. 1, 2, 3 pieces. 2 friends shared 6 pieces of funnel cake, and each friend got 3 pieces. Okay, so we divided that into an equal share. Now the back, you have more fractions where you are naming the fraction or noticing which part of the set it is. And then there's a review part where you're going to work on telling your time again. So it's good to keep practicing that. You're going to do great, and I appreciate all your hard work. Okay, for science, we've been learning about body systems, how God created our body, and each part in our body has a job to do, and there are systems that we can study to know more about how our body works. We've learned about the skeletal system, and we've learned about the muscular system, and today we're going to read about the circulatory system. Begins on page 182, and I'd like you to read it with me with a pencil so you can underline things, okay? This says, the heading is the circulatory system. Now, what do you think circulatory means? What does it sort of sound like? Circulatory. It sort of sounds like circle or circulate. It should make you think of something like this, and that's because that's what the circulatory system is. It's the parts of your body that help the blood move all around your body and get you what you need. Okay, your heart and blood vessels work together to form the circulatory system. This system has the job of moving blood to all parts of the body. Your blood moves through blood vessels. These tubes take the blood to your eyes, fingers, toes, and everywhere in between. So right at the beginning, we've already read circulatory system, which it tells us is our blood vessels and our heart, which work together to move the blood all through your body. And your blood carries the nutrients and the oxygen that your heart needs. So you can underline this. Blood vessels, those are the tubes, the place that move the blood all around your body. And the blood, your blood carries oxygen and nutrients that your body needs to live. Okay? Blood also carries waste to be removed from your body. And there's a cool picture in here, a diagram of the way the blood vessels are like tubes all over your body so the blood and oxygen and nutrients can get everywhere you need. Your heart is a powerful muscle. Each time your heart beats, it pumps blood through the body. It beats all the time. The only rest your heart gets is in between beats. And so then there's information about the heart. It's so interesting. It says our heart is about the size of our fist. Okay, so you can look at that and imagine, that's how big my heart is, beating all the time in my body. Your heart muscle is about the size of your fist, and as you grow, so does your heart. When you are an adult, your heart will be the size of your adult fist. A trip to the doctor helps you stay healthy. A doctor listens to your heart. He listens for a lub-dub sound. That is the sound a healthy heart makes as it beats. A doctor wants to know your heart rate. Your heart rate is how fast your heart is pumping. And when you exercise, your heart rate goes faster. And when you rest, your heart rate slows. I bet some of you have been to the doctor and felt that when they put the stethoscope on your back or on your chest and listen to your heartbeat. So I love learning about the body systems. I think it's been so interesting, and I hope you have read this along with me. You can look at it also on your own. Make sure you're familiar with these words. The circulatory system are your heart and your blood vessels that all work together to move the blood all through your body where you need it. Your blood vessels are those tubes. That picture is so cool, shows you how that looks in your body. And your blood moves the oxygen and the nutrients that your body needs. Okay? And your heart is a strong muscle. It's always beating. The only rest it ever gets is between beats. All right, so we've studied this part of our textbook. There's not a worksheet for it. I just want you to be ready to take your quiz, end of the week quiz on teams. Okay, all this week you have been doing your sustained silent reading, your SSR, and you've been keeping a reading journal. And today, on Friday, I would like you to write a book review. Now, this can be a written book review. I will attach a template like we did at the very beginning when we, one of the first things you turned in after spring break was your book review on that template. It can be written, or you may give your book review on video, okay? And send that video to Mrs. Parsons. I would love to watch it, okay? So keeping your reading journal this week is going to help you be able to give your book review. Some of you read a different book each day. Some of you read chapters, ongoing chapters in one book. Either way, because you've been reading every day and writing down a few thoughts about it, this will help you write your book review. Okay, when you are giving a book review, you want to be sure you include important information like author and illustrator, and be able to just briefly tell the main idea, because you don't want to give everything away, and you don't want it to be too long. You want it to be short and simple. You want to probably share what is your favorite part, and then tell whether or not you would recommend that book, okay? We read this book together, so I'll give a little book review about this. I did want to say, when I've read some of your reading journals, I've noticed you're already thinking like this, okay? One person read Corduroy, and when they wrote in their reading journal, they wrote a main idea. Main idea is Corduroy needs a home, or Corduroy has to find a button, I can't remember. And then a favorite part is when Corduroy gets a hug. I agree, by the way, that is my favorite moment in the Corduroy story. It's the hug at the end. But so check your reading journal. It's going to help you decide what to put in your book review. All right, now I'm going to give a book review of this one. We read this one together. The Big Red Lollipop. Written, the author... Okay, so I put a few things you want to make sure make it into your book review. The author is Rukhsana Khan, and it is illustrated by Sophie Blackall. Now, I enjoyed both the words and the pictures in this book. The main idea of this book is about sisters and how sometimes it's hard to get along, okay? And one of the things they argue about is this big red lollipop. My favorite part of the book, I had two favorite parts, but one favorite part is when the sisters are chasing each other through the house. I like this because the illustration really captures the feelings, okay? And my other favorite part is probably the very last page of the two sisters with their arms around each other, sharing a lollipop. So I really enjoyed this book. I recommend it. I think that the pictures are pretty. I think the words are well done. And I also just think it's an interesting story. It captures a feeling that a lot of us have sometimes of, whether it's with siblings, like brothers or sisters or cousins or just friends, of sometimes it feels like things aren't fair. And what do we do with those feelings? And can good things come about anyway? So this is the book, Big Red Lollipop. I enjoyed it and I recommend it. So I look forward to receiving either your written book review or your video book review. So today is Friday, which means you're going to have your end of the week quiz on teams. So let's be sure that you remember what we've been learning this week in history, and we're going to read a few more pages together. This part that we're reading, the heading says Battles Lost and Won. So why don't you get your history book and let's read this portion together. Early in the war, Washington's army drove the British out of Boston. Now, Washington, George Washington, he's the general of the colonial army, the army of the patriots, the people who think that America should be independent of British rule. All right, so you can remember we've read about him earlier. The colonists chose George Washington to be their general. And these battles in Boston, it's because a lot of the beginning things happened in that area. Remember, the Boston Massacre is the first place that some people were killed. And the Boston Tea Party, that's where when the colonists decided to protest the tea tax, they threw all the tea into the water in the Boston harbor, right? So early in the war, Washington's army drove the British out of Boston. American soldiers had taken over 2 British forts in northern New York. They dragged huge cannons from the forts into Massachusetts. They took them to the hills. They pointed the cannons down at the city of Boston. The British soldiers did not want to fight against guns that big, and they fled in their ships. The next battles were in New York. The British had thousands of soldiers, many more than the Americans had. Washington and his men fought bravely, but they could not win. They had to leave New York. Washington's army went to New Jersey. On Christmas Day in 1776, they crossed the icy Delaware River. They won a battle at the town of Trenton the next day. Now there in your book, they have a picture of a famous painting that's of Washington crossing the Delaware. It's someone's idea of what that might have felt like because they didn't really sit and paint it that cold, icy day, right? But you can look at that picture and you can tell the artist wanted you to feel that moment. There's ice in the water. The men are working hard to keep the boat going, and you can see George Washington standing up and looking tall and brave. So that artist wanted to give you that feeling of like, this is hard, but these people are brave. Okay? The British had a new plan. The three parts of their army would meet in New York, cut off New England from the rest of the colonies. If they could win the war in the northern colonies, they would have an easier time winning in the South. It was a good plan, but it didn't work. Not all of the British forces made it to their meeting place. One part of the army took over the city of Philadelphia and stopped there. At the Battle of Saratoga in New York, the British lost to the Americans. That battle, the Battle of Saratoga, gave the Americans hope, made them feel maybe they could win this war. And after the battle, France joined the American side of the war. Let's turn the page, 172. Winter had come. The fighting stopped for a while. Washington's men were cold and they were tired. Their clothes and their shoes were worn out. Many of them were sick. During the long winter at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, about 2,000 American soldiers died. That sounds like a really difficult time. Very cold and lots of sickness, and people didn't have the right kind of warm clothes and ways to take care of themselves. A German officer named Baron von Steuben joined the American army. He had fought in other wars and he knew how to train soldiers. Stand tall, move in a straight line, he told them. Make sure you look clean and neat. He drilled Washington's men in marching and shooting, and the soldiers began to feel braver and happier every day. Okay, and there's a picture of that man to kind of help you remember or to imagine what it was like. Okay, what battle made the Americans feel hopeful about winning the war? We just read about that, the battle at Saratoga. When they won, they felt like maybe we can. So because the British forces were much bigger and they had better gear and everything else than the American army. Do you remember, this is something we read earlier and it's good to review before you go in to take your quiz, what were the colonist soldiers called? They were those people, especially before the war actually started, the young men who were ready to fight at any minute. They were called the Minutemen. They were known as the Minutemen. And so when Paul Revere rode to say the British are coming, and that's who got ready, were the Minutemen. They had their guns and they got ready to fight and defend. Okay? So George Washington was the general. The Minutemen was the nickname of the colonial soldiers who were ready to fight in a minute. And this is some of the battles that were lost and won in the Revolutionary War. And you can remember this was a very strange time because the colonists didn't all agree about what should be done. There were loyalists who thought they should still consider themselves British citizens and loyal to the king. And there were patriots who thought America should have independence and they wanted this war. So it's an interesting time in history. I like hearing how many of you are enjoying reading this part of history. And after you finish watching the videos today, I want you to take your end of the week quiz on teams. It includes a section on history. Okay, in English, we've been learning about sentence parts. Every assignment this week has been about taking sentences apart, finding their subject, finding their predicate, their subject part and their predicate part. A subject is the main word or words in the subject part. It's who or what the sentence is about. And a noun or a pronoun can be a subject. Sometimes we use a pronoun to replace a noun so we're not repeating the same one all the time. Let's take a few sentences apart and find their parts. Smiling children are happy. We can look at that sentence and think, well, who or what is this sentence about? Well, it's about smiling children. Okay, that's your subject. Children specifically. And are is a linking verb. All right, so if we put a line between these two, we have subject and predicate. Okay, and in your worksheet today, you're going to be doing that. You're going to be finding the subject and the predicate. You're going to be circling the verbs, all right? In this case, it's a linking verb. Smiling children are happy. Children is the subject. Now, a pronoun can also be a subject, right? I enjoy reading outside. It's a personal pronoun. So I could say Mrs. Parsons enjoys reading outside, but I can also replace that with a personal pronoun, I. So in this sentence, I is the subject, and enjoy reading outside is the predicate. Okay, how about this? Brownies are my favorite dessert. Who or what is that sentence about? It is about brownies. And the verb is are. Now here's just a reminder. We've done this a few times on worksheets, but I want you to be sure you remember it. Mr. Parsons' guitar is brown. Okay, in this sentence, which is the possessive noun? That means the noun that shows ownership. Mr. Parsons' guitar is brown. And that's right here. This apostrophe S lets us know that this is a possessive noun. The guitar belongs to Mr. Parsons. Okay? And it's also the subject of that sentence is, right there, is your linking verb. All right? So you're going to do a lot of that in your worksheet. I know there's been some confusion about the which pages because I typed in the number wrong, but hopefully everybody is updated. And I hope you enjoy doing this worksheet, focusing on subjects, the main word or words in the subject part. And you can notice while you're doing your worksheet that a subject can be a noun or a pronoun. You'll be writing sentences a few times. You'll be taking sentences apart, drawing a line between the subject and the predicate, and circling the verbs. I have enjoyed taking the sentences apart this week. I think you've learned a lot, and it's been fun to see your hard work. I know you'll do great on this worksheet.